Alrighty, guys. Let's make sure this is all working here. Come on. There we go. Welcome to the Wednesday night live stream. TSR live stream. We got a lot of fun on the agenda tonight, guys. A lot to talk about tonight, y'all. A lot to talk about. Alright, so that is working. We are live. Live and in color. So, our 4 topics for the evening are gonna be all good news stuff. All good news stuff. We're not gonna get bummed out about anything tonight, guys. We are going to get happy. We're gonna get happy. So, with the first story on the agenda, welcome. Microalgae to help capture carbon from power plants, a new research venture. U.S. researchers have been awarded a $2 million grant from the Department of Energy to explore potential microalgae that absorb CO2 emissions from industrial power plants. Yan Tao Li holding an algae culture. Pretty. Is there a more iconic science photo than a petri dish? I don't think that there is. So, researchers from the University of Maryland Center of Environment and $2 million grant. Climate change is one of the biggest challenges facing society today. The biggest challenges, guys. And it is. So, but this is cool. So what are they going to do? They're going to attach this microalgae to power plants, wastewater treatment plants, and cement factories before it even enters the atmosphere. So that's thinking smart, guys. That's pretty cool. It's a modular and scalable design that allows a small installation to grow into a major carbon dioxide mitigation system, with its expansion paid for by the technology itself. So, I mean, that just sounds sweet. The technology has been used to capture carbon dioxide being released from the Back River wastewater treatment plant's power plant fuel gases. The team's collaborative efforts were previously funded in 2020. Okay, so this has been something they've been working on for a while, but I can't think of a better idea than this. I mean, this is something where you're going right to the source and slapping these puppies right on the number one polluters of these industries here. So, I don't know. Just thought it was a super cool thing to bring up. Very, very cool. Microalgae. It's funny how all these microorganisms, microfungi, all kinds of stuff are going to be the solution to help us stop the planet from imploding. Okay, no thank you. This is another super cool one that I loved. Drones planting seeds? Drones reforesting forests? Are you kidding me? You clarking me, dog? So look at how cool this drone looks. Canada. The destruction fueled an ambitious goal for the brothers to plant 1 billion trees in Canada across the world by 2028. So, lofty goal. Cheers to Cameron and Bryce Jones. kids with attitude. I like motivated, the motivated younger generation that really has this kind of stuff on their mind, you know, picking up the pieces from previous generations of destroying stuff. So these kids are super smart, super conscious. Looks they have long-term goals here, and they plan on reseeding huge vasts of land here with drones, which is so cool. The Flash Forest team can rapidly plant post-wildfire, where in many cases it's too dangerous to send human planters. They also target mid to high severity fires. Let me zoom in so you guys can see a little more. Unfortunately, due to climate change, we're seeing more high severity fires across the world. For Flash Forest planting, a team brings drones to forest site, pilots them over a tree canopy 130 to 200 feet in the air. The drone deploys an automated shooting seed pods strong enough velocity that they're embedded in the soil. Drones deploy 5 pods per second, covering a lot of ground. I mean, that's incredible, guys. How cool is that? That's where tech meets imagination, meets ambition, meets motivation. You know, climate morally motivated stuff. And this is just one of the coolest stories ever. I'd love to do this. These drones are super expensive, but I certainly would love to eventually get one to run a similar project like this. I mean, this is just such a cool idea. This is way more than humans can do themselves. And that's not taking away from anybody else that does it on their own. I've seen tons of videos and tons of activists getting out there, you know, planting these seedlings by hand. But I mean, if we can perfect this tech for reforesting, pretty sweet. So in addition to extensively modifying commercial drones to add seed firing abilities, the company relies on aerial mapping software and ensures, Jones explains, pods are not wasted in areas where trees won't grow. The seed pods themselves are a biological experiment. Okay. Team of Plant Science, 100 recipes. Douglas fir, western larch, lodgepole pine, ponderosa pine, white spruce, black spruce, jack pine are all in the mixes. Our goal is to be the most biodiverse reforestation company. Jones says we want to maximize the number of species we plant so we can rebuild forests, not just monocultures. I mean, look at this. These guys are calculated. Super cool. Pilot projects launched in spring 2021. Team planted over 300,000 pods, 19 different species at 13 different sites across Canada, completing the largest drone reforestation project in Canadian history. I mean, sweet. How cool is that, y'all? By spring of 2022, the company refined its drone and tech. Gosh, it makes me want to get involved. That's so cool. The company's origins go back to the Jones College days when they partnered with a friend, Angelique Alstrom, the co-founder, who is now the chief strategy officer. The trio wanted to respond to rampant deforestation due to fires near their school in the University of Victoria in British Columbia. Their work plays into the increasingly urgent climate change solution, where 2019 suggests that carbon trees can store, establishing 1 trillion new ones can decrease the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere by 25%. Further biodiversity plays a critical role in the enduring health of our forests and overall land. I mean, this right here, if this factoid is true, I mean, that's the easiest solution of all time, right? If even only 25% of us got motivated enough to get out there and start planting trees like wild men and women, we could probably, in a generation or two, plant 1 trillion new trees. And then within a generation, we can, properly manage, study, engage, and analyze our global climate and, run it at peak ideal conditions. So let's plant away, guys. There's over 20 billion trees lost each year. Only 7 billion are replanted. Okay, so that's a problem. If we're not even replanting what we're taking out, this is what I'm talking about here, and this is the whole point of the channel. The motto to live by is, at a minimum, we should be doing a 1-to-1. But in reality, for being this, the smartest big brain species on the planet, we should be doing like a 2-to-1 ratio of planting to taking. This doesn't seem unreasonable now with the tech that we have to achieve that type of efficiency. There's a net loss of trees each year. We need tree planters that join the effort on the world use fires. Because 9.3 million hectares of the tree globally. Manual planting. Yeah, manual planting cannot keep up, so we got to get better at that. Success means hitting the desired stocking standard, Jones says, what the company calculates. 1,500 stems per hectare. Second, success means maximizing biodiversity, so achieving successful germinations with all species planted, continually pushing to increase the number of species we plant. Yeah, and this is what's cool about if we do it too. We can really build diverse forests to our liking. So why not get excited and start putting more money and more of our time into this stuff? Absolutely incredible and severe. There's nothing better than knowing your daily efforts are going towards a good cause and making a better future. Flash Forest plans to rapidly scale by partnering with governments, private landowners, corporations, and others to send out fleets of drones. In November, the Canadian government announced a $1.3 million contribution to the company as part of its $2 billion commitment. To hit its goal of planting 1 billion trees by 2028, the company needs to scale at a rate of about 4 times every year. Wow, whoo-wee! That's a lot of growth, guys. We currently are on track, but it'll be rapidly scalable to get there. A big component will be securing more partners, both governmental and private, and leveraging corporate and social responsibility. Partners pledging reforestation goals. Next few years, Flash Forest hopes to expand outside Canada, ideally testing small-scale projects across Pacific Northwest. We look to work with private landowners who've been hit by wildfires so we can do trials on the site. Okay, sweet. Props to you, Emily Nonko, for writing this. Oh wow, she's popular too, huh? She's in the Wall Street Journal, New York Magazine, Curbed, and other publications. So, super cool, exciting stuff. So we'll head over here. This is a cool video about bridges that I didn't know. Let's check this out.
Approximately 40% of worldwide carbon emissions, researchers have identified that environmentally conscious designs for bridges can help to reduce carbon emissions in the construction industry. According to a study, the top 10 bridges in terms of area accounts for a staggering 75% of total carbon emissions. Architects and engineers have a crucial role to play in reducing the carbon footprint of bridges. They must account for carbon emissions in their designs and consider using sustainable materials, reducing waste, and implementing energy-efficient construction methods. By taking these steps, the construction industry can make a significant contribution towards a more sustainable future.
So, pretty cool there, huh, guys? Yeah, stuff to get excited about, y'all. So this is another thing we're going to end on, Terrance, as we usually do, going back to the Eris and the Eschaton lecture. I think one of the best ways to get everybody excited and active about environmentalism and conservationism and the works, basically just get them, not only aware of climate change, but aware of the whole picture. Is psychedelics. I really think so, especially psilocybin mushrooms. I think this is going to be one of the keys to unlocking the secrets of the universe, so to speak. And if our politicians, engineers, generals, scientists, in every industry would embrace what this has to offer, I think culturally it's gonna really make us a lot more focused and help us save the planet, which is dying. Help us save the ecology of the entire planet. So it'll make us a lot more empathetic towards all the other species that live here, as well as towards each other, since the human race isn't very nice to each other. So another reason why I think psychedelic research needs to continue, and it needs to be implemented on a mass scale, if you ask me. So, what is revealed through the psychedelic experience? I think it's a higher dimensional perspective on reality. I use a higher dimensional in their mathematical sense. Literally, you are lifted out of the plane of cultural assumptions and can look down with a kind of godlike understanding to one that obtains when one flies in an airplane over a landscape previously only viewed from the ground. In other words, from the vantage point of the psychedelic experience, the cultural landscape is seen more nearly in its correct perspective, seen as a historically bounded, spatial, and intellectually bounded. Now, it's no coincidence that if you analyze biology, what it is, it's kind of conquest of dimensionality. In its earliest forms of life were probably slimes of some sort, stabilized on a clay surface, immobile, unable to perceive light, with no sense of time, merely a fingernail or a toe hold in existence. Then if you look at the entire fossil record, what you see is the evolution of the senses. Sensory perceptors and organs of locomotion, the perceptors of the eye, the hand, bringing the cognitive fields of the sense of things at a distance, and language provides models for these things at a distance. Similarly, fins, legs, so on and so forth, means locomotion carries through space. This journey of dimensionality, then essentially what all animals and plants are, forms of mobile and very conscious way in spatial dimension. This is why, from the point of view of evolutionary biologists, animals are somehow more advanced than plants. Well, if conquest of dimensionality is the criteria, then notice that we again occupy a special privileged position in nature, because we can not only run with the best of them, see with the best of them, but we can remember and anticipate like crazy. Other animals are not doing this. Other animals may imprint past situations of danger or opportunity, but they do not analyze experience and extrapolate it towards the hidden domain of the future. Consciousness is a generalized word that we use for this coordination of complex perception to create the world that draws from the past and builds a model for the future, and then suspends perceiving the organism in this magical moment called the now, where the past is coordinated for the purpose of navigating the future. McLuhan called it driving with the rear view mirror, and the only thing that's good about it is it's better than driving with no mirror at all. So yeah, McLuhan, legend. Terrance he's so good with words. This paragraph here is, these couple paragraphs is truly incredible. I don't think you can encapsulate the human experience and the psychedelic experience better than those two paragraphs. So as we go on here, what is the conquest of dimensionality? Comes in the presence of psychedelics is the anticipation of the future. This is so true. We can anticipate the future. We know to within microseconds when the sun will rise. We know within a few percentage points where the prime rate will be in 6 months. Some things we can predict fairly closely. Some things we can with less precision. But the perception of the future is very important to us. When we marry the need to perceive the future with the psychedelic experience, I believe we come up with the data that is very, very difficult for science to come to terms with. This is the third item, or really the second item on the list, what science forgot. It's called what I call the eschaton. Now, the eschaton is a rare word, until very recently unheard outside of schools of theology, which I understand were a dying enterprise. Eschaton comes from the Greek word eskatos, which means the end. The eschaton is the last thing, the final thing. It's very important to science to eliminate from its thinking any suspicion that this eschaton might exist, because if it were to exist, it would impart to reality a purpose. You would see, if the eschaton exists, then it's like a goal or an attraction point or an energy sink towards a historical process is being moved. Science is incredibly hostile towards this idea of purpose, and that's so true. That's one of the flaws of science, not to say that it hasn't taken us so far, and it's incredible, but they reject so many of these, the idea of purpose. So if you're not involved in the sciences, this may come as somewhat of a surprise to you. If you're a workbench scientist or a theoretician, you know that this is what's called the problem of teleology. It's because modern science defined itself in the 19th century when reigning philosophy was deism, and deism was the idea that the universe is a clock made by God. God wound this clock and has walked away from it. The clock will eventually run down, and the theological construct was poisonous to the evolutionary theory in the 19th century. So they said we must create a theory of reality that does not require a goal. It does not require a purpose. Everything must be pushed from the past. Nothing must be pulled towards the future. The problem with this is it does not fulfill our intuitions about reality. We can see that evolution, biological evolution, has built on chemical systems. We can see that social and historical systems build on biology. As people with open minds, or as open as they can be inside this culture, we nevertheless have this intuition of purpose, and it's dramatically understood by the psychedelic experience. I mean, this is for sure. If there's one thing that I can say I've had coming out of a psychedelic experience, it is that you have a hugely increased sense of purpose. And not only that, a hugely increased sense of responsibility to really take advantage of every little second of life. And there's a huge motivation where you feel like I don't want to call it ego death. I don't know if I've really experienced with the full ego death of what some others claim. Maybe I haven't done a high enough dose. I think ego is somewhat healthy on some level. You need to have some version of ego, but it kind of just makes you a little bit more planet conscious, people conscious, kindness conscious, I guess you could say, is my experience from using psychedelics, specifically psilocybin. So, yeah, moving on from that, which takes the raw material of your life, your culture, your history, and tells you that it's not an existential mishmash to be lived out with dignity, because there's nothing else to be done with it. Some kind of Camus, just amazing Frenchman. Why not affirmation? It says no. It says your reality is a coherent cosmos, and embedded in our own sense of identity, embedded in your own sense of purpose, is a microscopic reflection of the larger purpose that is built into the universe. Now, this is not just blowing smoke in the sense of it's a nice idea, or it's like a religious idea like saying Jesus loves you so you feel all right about yourself. It isn't like that. It's a theory about reality that has teeth because reality is actually following the script that this particular version of reality dictates. Reality is accelerating towards an unimaginable omega point. Word, Terrance, word. So we are the inheritors of the immense momentum of our social systems, our philosophical and scientific and technological approaches to the world. Because we're driving the historical vehicle with a rear view mirror, it appears to us that we are headed straight into another brick wall at 1,000 miles per hour, which is pretty much the dilemma of destroying the earth and climate change. And yeah, here we go. It appears that we're destroying the, polluting the atmosphere, wrecking the oceans, dehumanizing ourselves, robbing our children of a future, so on and so forth. I believe what is in fact going on here is that we are burning our bridges. One by one, we are burning our bridges to the past. We cannot go back to the mushroom-dotted plains of Africa or the canopied rainforests of 5 million years ago. We can't even go back to the area of Cayuse and the six-shooter 200 years ago. We've burned our bridges. We're preparing for a kind of cultural forward escape, and this question, is there cause for optimism? The answer is, it depends on where you placed your bets. If you place your bets on male-dominated institutions based on consumer fetishism, propaganda, classicalism, and materialism, then God help you. You should call your broker. If on the other hand, you've recognized that a lifeboat strategy is involved here, and that what really is important is empowering personal experience, backing off from consumer object fetishism, and freeing the mind, empowering the imagination, then in that case, I think you could feel pretty good about what's going on. So these are the optimistic and pessimistic takes of our current cultural reality. There is a lot of talk about cultural death and disfranchisement, and it's usually couched in the terms of some happy naked people in the rainforest or in Tajikistan making their rugs or milking their camels or something. And it isn't too bad, but their culture is being blown up and traded in for mall culture and shopping by remote. But in fact, all culture is being destroyed. All culture is being sold down the river by sort of people who want to turn the entire planet into an international airport arrival concourse. That's not the victory of somebody's culture over somebody else's culture. Nobody ever had a culture like that. The victory of schlockmeisterism and crapola over good taste and good sense. Yeah, Terrance uses really weird words, and interesting dude. If I were dependent on the notion that human institutions are necessary to pull us out of the ditch, I would be very despairing. As I said, nobody is in charge. Not the IMF, not the Pope, not the Communist Party, not the Jews. No. Nobody has their finger on what's going on. I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I don't care. YouTube, flag me, whoever you want. If you want to watch. This is an open platform, and it's all about saving and healing the planet. So we are all one. Nobody has their finger on what's going on. There is no evil mischief ruler, unless it's an alien civilization, or some maybe future time-traveling version of us. But that's for a different day. Different takes, guys. Those will be for maybe future funner episodes where we delve into the fantasy theories So then why hope? Isn't it just a runway train out of control? I don't think so. I don't either. I don't think so. I think the out of controlness is the most hopeful thing about it. After all, who's in control it out of? You and I never controlled it in the first place. Why are we anxious about that fact, that it's out of our control? I think if it's out of control, then our side is winning. Me too. To me, the most confounding datum of the psychedelic experience is this thing, which I call the eschaton. And I want to talk about it a little bit this evening because I think the hardest thing for people to grasp about the particular rap and Terrance's particular rap is psychedelics, specifically the mushroom. Sometimes I've talked to many of you about psychedelic plants, shamanism techniques, chemistry approaches, so on and so forth. I'm approaching this evening as a graduate seminar. I figured everybody has their little mojo kit, their particular way of approaching these things. And then the question is, what kind of conclusions can we draw? The conclusion that I draw in this sort of pulling together what I said before, we are central to the human drama and to the drama of nature and the processes on this planet. The opposition, which is science, well, first let me say, every model of the universe has a hard swallow. What I mean by a hard swallow is a place where the argument cannot hide the fact that there's something slightly fishy about it. The hard swallow built into science is the business about the Big Bang. Now let's give this a little attention here. This is the notion that the universe, for no reason, sprang from nothing in a single instant. Well, now before we dissect this, notice that this is the limit test for credulity. Whether you believe this or not, notice that this is not possible to conceive of something more unlikely or less likely to be believed. I defy anyone. It's just the limit case for unlikelihood that the universe would spring from nothing in a single instant for no reason. If you believe that, my family has a bridge across the Hudson River that will give you a lease option for $5. And it's so true. Even science has it needs its miracles. It has a little bit of fantasy woven in that you need to believe in something. That's a believed thing. It makes no sense, and in fact, it's no different from saying, and God said, let there be light. What these philosophers of science are saying is, give us one free miracle that we roll from that point forward from birth time to the crack of doom. Just one free miracle, and then it will all unravel according to natural law and these bizarre equations that nobody can understand, but which are wholly in this enterprise. Well, I say then, if science gets one free miracle, then everybody gets one free miracle. And this is one of my favorite Terrance lines ever. Because definitely as a guy who embraced science and embraced all kinds of different ideologies, at the end of the day, this statement is true for almost everyone. Everybody should get one free miracle then. I perceive that this is true when you build these large-scale cosmogonic theories that you have to kind of an umbilical cord to start from that is different from all other points in the system. So if we have a singularity in our modeling of what reality is, let's make it as a modest or non-likely a singularity as possible. The singularity that arises for no reason is absolutely empty space instantly is like the least likely of all singularities. Doesn't it seem more likely if we have to have a singularity that occurs in a domain with a rich history, with many casual streams feeding into the situation that nurtures the complexity? In other words, to put it simply, if you have to have a singularity, doesn't it make more sense to put it at the end of a cosmogonic process than at the beginning? And big facts right there. So instead of a lot of religions and a lot of science claiming that we emerge from a singularity, no, I think it's probably the other way around. It ends with a singularity. So I think this is the great breakthrough of psychedelics and shamanism. The science got it absolutely wrong. The universe didn't begin in a singularity. Who knows how the universe began, or even presumes to judge. But the universe ends in a singularity. It's been growing more singular, more complex, more unique, more novel every passing moment since it burst into existence. If that's not true, then we represent a kind of concrescence of universal intent. We're not mere spectators or a cosmic accidents or some sideshow or the Greek chorus to the main event. The human experience is the main event. The coordination of perception, of hope, of dream, of vision that occurs inside the human heart, mind, body interface is the most complex phenomenon in the universe. Now, even the physicologists acknowledge that the human neocortex represents the most densely ramified matter known to exist in the biological world. So this right here. Even science has to admit, because we don't know everything about the brain, that in the Cartesian materialist Marxist whatever world of materialism, that the brain is the most densely ramified matter known to exist in the biological world. Now, that says something about human beings. That says something about consciousness. You know, that's just me and Terrance's take. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to see that human society, human history, human art, human literature represent things for which there is no analog in the world of wasps, groundhog, killer whales, so on and so forth. In our species, complexity has turned inward upon itself and in on our species. Time has accelerated. Time has left the gentle ebb and flow of gene transfer and adaptation that characterizes biological evolution. And instead, historical time is generated. So I believe that science and its reluctance to deal with the psychedelic experience and the way in which science has used the law to suppress its rival in this case arises out of a profound discomfort on the part of science about this future state of complexification that is clearly the grail, the dwell point, the end point of human historical process. Not one of us, I think, can imagine that history could go on for another 1,000 years. I mean, what would it look like? At the current rate of population growth, the spread of epidemic disease, the rate of invention, connectivity, depletion of resources, the atmosphere, it's impossible to conceive another 1,000 years of human history. History then is ending. History is a kind of gestation process. It's kind of a metamorphosis. It's an episode in the life of a species, if you think of the simple example of metamorphosis, that of a caterpillar to a butterfly. We all know that there is this intermediate resting stage where the caterpillar is, for all practical purposes, enzymatically dissolved and then reconstituted an entirely different kind of organism with different physical structures, different eyes, different legs, a different way of breathing, with wings where no wings were before, with a different kind of feeding apparatus. This is what's happening to us. This is what's happening to us, guys, especially since the advent of the internet. And what is essentially a hive mind with unlimited vast amounts of information storage and communication methods. And definitely history is a process of metamorphosis. It's a pubescent stage. It begins with naked monkeys and it ends with a human machine plant girdling interface capable of releasing energies that light the stars, and it lasts about 15,000 to 20,000 years during that period, and the entire process hangs in the balance. It's a period of high risk. It's like what a butterfly is doing in the cocoon, or what's happening to a child in a womb. It's a gestation period where one form of life is being changed into another. Well, this would happen naturally with a great deal of anxiety, I imagine, as a history builds into an ever more climactic and horrifying crescendo. And we all would like to be ignorant or very baffled about what's going on, or it's not resolved into psychedelic shamanism. Remember I said what is dissolved are the crystalline structures of cultural assumption, where one of the strongest symmetries in our cultural crystal is the symmetry that gathers around the concept of past and future. The shaman actually rises into a domain where past and future are different areas on the same topological manifold. This is not a metaphor, it's what's really going on. If you think about shamanism, it is a classical guise for a moment. It's about predicting weather, predicting game movement, and curing disease. If you had a prescient or extraordinary understanding for the future, each of us would be able to do these things. Predicting the weather, you could just look in the next week and there it is. Predicting the movement of game, same deal. Curing the sick actually involves a very judicious choice of your patients with pre-knowledge of who will get well and who will not get well. So as though the members of the culture are imprisoned in a linear time and the shaman is not. And why not? Because the shaman has perturbated the brain state sanctioned by the culture, sanctioned by its educational process, its habits, its attitudes. And in that vacuum created by the perturbation by these cultural values rushes the raw, unanalyzed datum of reality. This is what Aldous Huxley, OG by the way, read everything Aldous Huxley wrote, called removing and reducing the valve of consciousness. Suddenly, culture is seen to be relative phenomenon. The stockbroker is no different from the rainforest shaman, each somewhat similar to the Trio Brandel Islander or the Eskimo. Culture is simply clothing upon the human experience, but the human organism outside the confines of the culture in an indirect relationship to nature transcends time and space. This was a fact, I believe, that was known in prehistory, and in fact was the source of Paleolithic values, which are not material, not linear, not surplus-oriented, not class-oriented, not power-oriented, but rather orientated towards a kind of egalitarian partnership or an environment of great material simplicity. Human beings lived like that for probably 500,000 years, with poetry, with dance, with mathematics, with magic, with story, with humor, but not with paralyzing and toxic artifacts of the late evolving machine worshipping monotheistic linear phonetic alphabet tight ass straight culture that we're part of now. Boom. I mean, that's boom. The Terrance just drops the fucking truth bomb right on everybody right there. Sorry for the F bomb, but I don't care. This is the adult section of the channel, guys. This is where we start to get serious about talking about ways to fix our current state of ourselves and the planet. And that's why I like to be optimistic. There are corrections that we can make to move forward, move the culture forward. So yeah. Now, at a kind of moment of great cultural challenge, a dynamic for Western civilization, which has for 1,000 years called on all the shots, shoved itself down everybody's throat, whether they liked it or not, in the last 100 years, through the science of anthropology, ethnography, ethnomedicine, and botany, the news has arrived that these primitive people are in fact master technicians of journeying into a world of neurological imagination, a world we didn't even know existed. A world that is distant to us, and a world that is at the heart of the atom is from the rainforest fishermen, because our own cultural values seem a little shoddy at this moment. Those on the fringes of Western civilization have begun to seek alternatives, begun to look at alternative religions like yoga, tantra, Buddhism, Zen, whatever. Alternative approaches to diet, vegetarianism, macrobiotic, and so on and so forth. And alternative approaches to authentic experience, which means psychedelics. So we're gonna stop it there, and we'll continue in a later live stream, guys. But I mean, boom. Okay, we'll do one more thing. In the early stage of psychedelic involvement, everyone was sort of flying under the banner in the hands of Freudianism or in the hands of Jungianism. We're all going to see those archetypes. We're going to confront those sexual repressions. We're going to journey into those traumatic childhood memories. Now, it's understood, I think, that those metaphors were fairly inadequate, and that actually we stand on the brink of an unexplored landscape of planetary size. The world of the high Paleolithic, which is the Gaian world, a world of feeling and not analytical, intellectual constructs, but a world of empowering feeling and empathy and intuitive understanding. An understanding that does not arrive in a context of Greek logic, but in a context of animal knowing in the authentic mode of the body. So, we'll end it right there, guys. But that ends the extreme ideas of the archaic revival and shamanism that Terrance talked about. I don't know, when did he give this speech? Later on. This one was 1994. So we're here. We're at the pinnacle. We're at the peak. We're at that metamorphosis point of humanity, I believe, and it's Terrance belief. He had a couple of different theories that, but I think the solution is actually ends up being transitioning our society back into a less monotheistic society. What did he go down here? We need to go back to a Gaian society where it's more partnership orientated instead of dominator orientated. I've been mentioned that in every single live stream, and I'm going to continue to say it. I think we need more women in power. That's one easy way to correct all this, because women tend to be more empathetic. And then we also need all of our corporate overlords and all of our politicians to take psychedelics. Hopefully, we need pretty much almost everyone to experience the psychedelic experience in some form or fashion. In some of these ancient cultures, the shamans didn't have access to psychedelics, and through meditation, it's been said you can gain psychedelic experiences by just meditating. So that being said, it's something we all need to really focus on, because we've got big problems. Our current way of running things is not working. We're destroying the planet. But again, I'll say human beings lived like that for probably we lived like this for 500,000 years, with poetry, with dance, with mathematics, with magic, with story, with humor. But up until recently, the past 20,000 years, I would say, or maybe less. Suppose the last one of the last cultures that was a little bit more matriarchal and a little bit more like this would probably be Minoan Crete, or if you believe in Atlantis, if that existed, this was probably a civilization that was in a culture that was built on these motifs. But now I think without question, everybody recognizes it. It's not debatable. We live in a machine worshiping, monotheistic, linear, phonetic alphabet, tight ass straight culture now, and it's a problem. But it can be corrected, and we can restore each other, and we can restore the planet together, guys. Just piece by piece, one piece at a time. That's the mantra here, guys. So, boom, tonight's episode. Super, super optimistic. I want everybody to be happy and have a good week out there. I hope you, like I said before, just maybe dedicate 1 hour a day. Go out there, grab a trash bag, clean up a couple of, clean up a bag or two worth of trash at your local park. Get some sun and prevent, soil from getting contaminated. As little of a difference as it makes. If everybody picked up one bag a week, or planted trees for an hour every week, we could make some serious progression. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. I really appreciate y'all. You rock. Like I said, live that green revolution. Read Aldous Huxley. Read everything Terrance had to put out there. Terrance Mckenna. Listen to all of his lectures on YouTube. Check his stuff out, y'all. So thanks again for watching. Bye, guys.